Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the classifications and functions of law. This is really important for you to understand as it'll provide the foreground for much of the content of the course. Luckily, I think this is really easy to understand and a good way to get started. The classifications of laws. Last podcast I talked about the sources of law. Hopefully you remember what those were. So the two sources of law in Australia are Parliament and the courts. And the government also makes regulations, but the main two are Parliament and the courts as sources. But now we're talking about the classification of these laws. So not where they come from, but what we call them. And these are split also into two classifications. So what are they? Basically, they're public and private law. And it's kind of summarized briefly in this little diagram here. So public law involves things like international law, admin law, constitutional, criminal, and tax law. On the other hand, private law involves things like contracts, torts, we'll go into what those are in a minute, family law, employment law, land, wills, and succession. So if you haven't noticed the difference between these two already, I will explain it further. So first up, public law. Basically, the definition of this is that it regulates the relationships between individuals and the state. So me and the government, or me and whoever's the state body I'm dealing with. So that's the legal relationship. So it's primarily concerned with prescribing acceptable standards of behaviour that everyone is expected to sort of follow. Public law also actually includes the Constitution. So when Australia federated in 1901, they created the Constitution to outline how the legal system in the country was going to work. And public law also includes administrative law. Admin law just means things to do with government running. Okay, so if you think about it, the government has to run the country, they have to administer it. So all government type law is admin law, necessary to function. So an example would be the Immigration Department, let's say, as an administrative law body. So branches of public law include constitutional, admin, international, criminal, and so on. So the key thing to remember is individual and the state. On the other hand, private law regulates the relationships between legal entities. So not between the state and the individual, but two individuals, if that makes sense, whether these be like individual people or organizations. So Samsung suing Apple is a private law matter. It's two legal entities. Me suing Miss Johnson is a private law matter, whatever. Private law defines unacceptable standards of civil behavior and the procedures used to resolve these private disputes. Importantly, a large amount of private law exists as case law. Okay, so laws created from legal disputes brought before a court, whereas public law is created mostly by, Parliament, government, those sort of big law-making bodies, whereas private law is in the courts, in the case law. Case law principles guide future cases that are similar. But interestingly, say if you committed a crime, which is a public law offence, you would be given a sanction. You would be sent to prison or you would be fined. Whereas private law, civil law cases, it's not the purpose to punish the person sort of in the wrong. It's more to provide a remedy. So you pay compensation or you fix the neighbour's fence or whatever. It's to provide a remedy, not a punishment. Some branches of private law include contract law. So when you sign a contract for your phone, tort just means civil wrong in French. And these include things like tort of negligence, so not having a duty of care, tort of defamation, so saying lies about or writing lies about someone else to tarnish their reputation, tort of trespass. This is in orange because trespass is also a criminal offence, so it's kind of on both. Tort of nuisance. Private law also has other branches, including, family law, trusts, property, ownership, wills, all that sort of thing. Awesome. Now we're going to talk about the functions of law. So we looked at the sources, we looked at the classification. Now, what is the actual function of law? What is its purpose? Okay. Basically, it can be put into two main areas again, and two kind of fancy words for it. So the first one is social cohesion. As we know, cohesion means being together. So one of the first main function is social cohesion to sort of uphold shared beliefs, social, moral, and political values. So what do we value as society, and how is that reflected in our laws? Our laws must give effect to these values and beliefs. The second one is the law must provide for social progress. So within the culture of a diverse and changing society. So laws aren't useful if they keep us stuck in the past. So laws must bring us into new eras and reflect the new changes and values. So for example, a great example would be the recent changes to the Marriage Act, which allowed same-sex couples to marry. I guess this is giving effect to both functions of law because, one, you have more people who are sharing values of harmony and so on, and in equality and social progress is moving along without changes in values in a sort of newer modern society. If we break these down further, so social cohesion prescribes that laws must protect our values and rights for us to be a cohesive society. It also sets acceptable standards of behaviour and prescribes legal consequences for breaching them. So to ensure a cohesive society, you must have the standards, you must have the consequence, otherwise it would be just chaos and anarchy. Social cohesion also prescribes that laws create the institutions of government to make laws and enforce them, as well as bring about just outcomes. So this is kind of has to do with LEDGE, the LEDGE 3 arms of the law, and it also says that laws must be adaptable to changing circumstances. On the other hand, social progress provides a universal education system for all citizens, so we can be educated and move our society forward. Number 2 is that to have progress, we have to, develop our young people into well-adjusted adults to make, future societies functional, and also foster good health practices to ensure this movement to future generations effectively. These two functions of law can be summarised in, what are they called again? Mnemonics, these things, acronyms, and social cohesion for VALC. So the V stands for our values and rights. So these are protected by laws. The A is about acceptable standards of behaviour and the consequences for breaching them. L, laws create institutions of government to enforce, make and adjudicate laws and disputes. And C, change. Laws must be adaptable to changes in values and needs in society. So if you know VALC, you know social cohesion. Other hand, social progress is heed. So heed my words for the future or whatever. Health practices are fostered, good ones. Education system is universal and for all citizens. Environmental protection for the future. And development of youth into well-informed citizens and a harmonious, prosperous society. Going back to this idea of unacceptable standards of behaviour. So we have public wrongs, which are, crimes. So murdering someone, speeding, drink driving, okay? These give us effect to our right, to life, etc. And private wrongs is where you've infringed on someone else's rights. So, things like negligence and so on. Talking about social cohesion and social progress, I found these two articles recently, and I thought they were good examples. So the first one here, Malcolm Turnbull refuses to rule out new coal-fired power stations. So obviously this is concerning environmental energy issues, and you can think about how is social progress given effect to, or even social cohesion, what values are we putting forward with regards to our uses of energy sources? Do we want to use coal for a sustainable future? Is the law, is Parliament and Malcolm Turnbull giving effect to these functions of law? And secondly, the Senate to debate repealing euthanasia ban in Australian territories. So the idea of, assisted suicide currently is illegal in Australia. So these people are saying, we value this. This should be a right. The law is perhaps not reflecting that. Interesting, very sort of controversial topic. Anyway, today's task, what I would like you to do is the worksheet on the classifications and functions of law. This is on Google Classroom in the attached button. You're encouraged to complete this individually, but you can discuss it with your friend, and it will draw on info from this video and my previous one. Make sure you finish it in class, or if not, please do it for homework. And that's all from me. Thank you for listening.